because I started renting. And apart from the fact that the first time after I'd been married that I was renting, it was how can I invest my money to get into a house? Because once again, it was about the great Australian dream of having your own home because I'd lost it. How do I do that?
This is Property Investory, where we talk to successful property investors to find out more about their stories, mindset and strategies. I'm Taran Shum, and in this episode we're speaking with property strategist Christine Williams. She will share her personal investing story, how she became a Rentvester before the term was introduced, and how she learned the hard way about residential and commercial interest rates so that you don't have to too. Investment property strategist at Smarter Property Investing, Williams says the key to managing her day is communication and teamwork, which is a big part of what makes her day so successful.
As you can hear, I love to talk, but I'm more than often, my first thing that I do is my to-do list to make sure that I'm covering up on what I need to achieve for my clients. I have a task of making sure that I speak to at least 5 clients a day, not email, actually speak to them. And of course, then I spend quite a bit of my time on research, what's coming up, looking at what the media is saying, thinking that my clients are going to be concerned about what the media is saying, so I make sure that I've got an answer ready for that. And if anything other than that, it's working with my team.
Fantastic. And how big's your team?
I've got 5 girls, contractors and full-time employees as well. And then, of course, from that, I work with ancillary services, mortgage brokers, solicitors, accountants, financial planners. But my actual team is myself and 5 girls.
Yeah, it's so important to be able to build a portfolio or help others build a portfolio. You need a team and people, the right people surrounding you to be able to help achieve that, because it's not a one-man business or one-man thing anymore nowadays with property. It's a team effort.
No, it's not. And from a business perspective, that's exactly right. However, from an investment property perspective, it's extremely important to have those professionals around you as well.
In 2016, Williams' company were nominated for the Finder Innovation Awards under the category of Most Innovative Team and Person. She has used her strategies for personal success within her own business and is known to specialize in property portfolios. She says that being a mother and grandmother has enabled this trait, as she's learned to have a backup plan in any scenario.
I'm actually accredited with PIAA as a property advisor, and in that it's talking about strategies and what strategy would actually suit you. So I would say that I'm a strategist from just being a female, because, you know, as a wife, a mother and a grandmother, you have to work things out, and you have strategies always in place. You know, if strategy A doesn't work out, you know, what have we got lined up for B and C? So that's how I would see myself. But really, I've just said that a wife, a mother and a grandmother. I often tell my audiences when I'm speaking, what you see is what you get. So I'm pretty normal, and if I can do it, I feel most people can do what I do.
As a young girl, Williams' family moved around a great deal. In her adult life, this became a reason for her to begin purchasing property and to settle down.
I'm a Melbourne girl, born and bred in Melbourne. I grew up in Broadmeadows. But in saying that, I went to 7 different primary schools, left school at 15, but went to 4 different secondary schools. So from that, you can tell that my parents moved around a lot. And so I had a very, very gypsy-like growing up. And a part of that moving was rental properties, but a lot of my childhood was spent in caravans as well. Can't say that I had bad childhood. I had very loving childhood. However, it wasn't until I became an adult and understood that I didn't want to continue moving around and I wanted a home. So yes, the great Australian dream of actually owning a home was what was one of the things that, even though my parents couldn't provide that, it was something that they influenced me in my upbringing. And they made me understand that you could live anywhere and a home could be made into a home. But I actually got hooked on the great Australian dream of owning bricks and mortar. So inadvertently, because of my upbringing, that's how I got involved in property, because it was something I didn't have and it was something that I've worked towards having. And I still work towards that today, and I'm still building my property portfolio today. And it just makes me think that, yes, my children won't have the childhood that I had, and it's my biggest why. So that's where that came from.
Stemming from her love of numbers, Williams has had a variety of administration and managerial jobs before beginning her property investment journey. Each of these jobs paved the way for her to become a property investment strategist.
Funny, having to leave school at 15 because I had to help my parents out financially. I'm the eldest of 3 children. It's really funny understanding or thinking about how I got into property. It wasn't something I woke up one day saying, this is what I'm going to do. It certainly has evolved over many years. But it actually came from, it's a very good question, Tyrone. It actually came from me loving numbers. I've always been a numbers girl. Numbers just come into my mind and I can work out something very quickly through numbers. So the jobs that I had when I left school, I was quite lucky to start in an office when I was 15 and 4 months, and I was the mail girl at J. Gadsden's. And from that, my expertise in numbers just sort of cemented administration jobs, accounts receivable, accounts payable, wages, payroll, anything that had to do with numbers. I just seemed to excel at it. And through that, through my career, I became manager in charge of staff and so forth. But once I got married and understanding that I knew that I needed to earn more money to get further ahead in life, I actually went back to night school and I did my accounting diploma. So I suppose from the accounting diploma and being in managerial positions and actually workflow and having to strategise for businesses that I worked in. So I've worked in hospitality, the building industry, the automotive industry, all industries that evolved around KPI and numbers. It really helped me become the strategist that I am today because I was strategising in the career path that I took in every single job.
Williams says that it is only natural for her to enter into the property investing industry due to following what she was passionate about. She says that when investing in properties, you have to actually become a business owner.
Technically, I've been self-employed for about the last 20 years, and I think not wanting to be my own boss, that it didn't sort of come from there. It came from the necessity of having money and earning money, and money became a part of what you needed to become a very successful property investor. So I suppose becoming a business owner, once again, taught me how to strategise in business and becoming quite successful in businesses. I've been involved in 3 different businesses. So with that, property investing or smarter property investing, my business today, really came from 20 odd years being in business and understanding that becoming a property investor, this is something that I teach my clients all the time, you've actually become a business owner. You've actually started a business, and the business is property investing. So it really was just a natural path for me to create a business from a passion that I had.
Williams tells us her first investment property came about and how she was intent on chasing the great Australian dream of owning her own home. Then she realised that to create wealth, it was necessary to own a collection of properties rather than just 1 or 2.
The first investment property actually came after my divorce. So if I go back to my first marriage, I have a current husband, so I'm in a second marriage. If I go back to my first marriage, yes, we built a house, bought a block of land, we built a house. And we eventually decided that house wasn't big enough, so we sold it. And we sold it in the boom. And then we built a bigger house. And then we did exactly the same thing again and sold it in boom and made money along the way. But we were only selling and buying to get a bigger house because it was a great Australian dream. So I never really understood anything other than just buying and selling houses at that particular time, and you made money out of it to get a bigger house. But I suppose the property investing started after I got divorced, and unfortunately after paying out private school fees and debt, I came out with $15,000 and 2 teenage children. And where was I going to park that $15,000? Because I started renting. And apart from the fact it was the first time after I'd been married that I was renting, it was how can I invest my money to get into a house? Because once again, it was about the great Australian dream of having your own home because I'd lost it. How do I do that? So I started looking at different investments. Property wasn't the first thing that I invested in. I actually invested in a business first. And from that, it was very successful in the first couple of years. And then it was a block of land. And the block of land, through a boom, I doubled my money in less than 18 months. I took that money and I actually invested it then in bricks and mortar. So it really came out of desperation. Investing in property came out of desperation from a divorce, and then being successful in the choices that I made, because to me, investing in property is not about investing in property. To me, investing in property is my why and my outcome, and it's about making money. So it was, how can I make money quickly instead of, just having to work more hours or find a job that's going to pay me more. The penny dropped when I realised property made money, and that was what I was after. From that, I eventually realised that, it's not one property, it's not two properties, it's actually multiple property, and that's how it turned into a business.
Williams had learned from her mistakes and wanted the opportunity to inform others of the information she had gleaned. After working for a number of years as a mortgage broker, she realised that she had a way of helping people, and so led her to become a property investment strategist.
Well, along the way, one of the lessons I learnt was how to get more money, and that was working with banks. And I made a mistake once I understood that I didn't want the bank to own my house. So I understood that if I had a separate property, that being investment property, and if that was the security, the bank wouldn't use my own home as security. So what I'm leading to there is that I end up paying cash through equity in my own property. I end up paying cash for commercial property. And that commercial property was then going to be the basis of my security for future investment properties. I didn't realise at that time that by buying a commercial property, any future investment residential properties that I securitised against that property, I would have to be paying commercial interest rates. So therefore, my cash flow went down and my expenses went up. Mm. And it was a very, very big lesson that I learnt, that securing property against commercial property, you acquire commercial interest rates, not residential interest rates. So with that, I thought to myself, I'm not going to fall for that trap again. And these are how I learnt lessons during my life. When I did fall into a trap or I didn't have enough information and I made the wrong decision, I went out and learned how to do this better. So at that point, I became a mortgage broker. Oh. And at that point, I started to learn the system. And the system was how to get money from the banks to work within your own property investment strategies, and how to get the best product and not fall into the same trap that I did. So I've become successful because of the mistakes I've made, and then by making mistakes, I've decided to go and learn how to do it better. So all through my career and through my journey of being a property investor, the mistakes I made, I went and learned how to do it better. So how I started telling people about investing in property, because by this time I'm investing in property myself, and as a mortgage broker, I was always asked, what do you do and how do you do it? And it was more about helping my mortgage broking client set up the correct product so that they could continue to borrow money under bank guidelines, and to know what their why was and to know what they intended to do and how to help them on that path to get there. And it was after the mortgage broking that I started the property business, because I just realised after 3 or 4 years that I was helping a lot of people inadvertently, and it just become the natural progression.
William speaks about the lowest of the low in her investing experiences, saying that the commercial interest rate prevented her from acquiring a good cash flow and borrowing more money.
Well, I suppose it came from that commercial property, because as much as it turned out quite successful in the end, of course, I made quite a bit of money out of it. It was the worst decision I made, because I had already planned to purchase 3 properties over the future 3 years after that property. And because the commercial interest rates changed my cash flow, it actually prevented me from borrowing money or having that right cash flow for at least 2 years. So I see that's a worse decision because it kept me out of the market for 2 years whilst I had to refinance, re-strategise and get back into it. So as much as it turned out to be a successful investment, it was the worst decision I made. I mean, it is a good investment if you've got the right strategy in place. So yes, I have clients that work with commercial.
The term Rentvester has become popular amongst those from Generation Y, who are finding it too challenging to enter into the market. William says that while the term is relatively new, she herself lived by the principle 20 years ago.
If people are prepared to go and look up the old-fashioned Macquarie Australian English Dictionary, you'll find that there's a word in there now that was actually put in the English Dictionary just over 2 years ago, and it's called rentvester. So a rentvester to me is someone who is renting where they want to work and live, but they can't afford to buy their own home in the area that they want to live, but they're being quite wise and they're investing in other areas and creating and building wealth outside where they're living.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know, I suppose my aha moment was over 20 years ago, I was a rentvester. I was renting because I wanted to keep my girls in the schools that they had, the area that they'd grown up in, and to keep them with their friends. And after a divorce, I couldn't rebuy in the same area. So I started renting in the area to keep my girls in the same schools and keep them with their friends. And I started investing where I could afford to invest. So over 20 years ago, I became a rentvester. I didn't know until 2 years ago that it was an actual person or an actual title or an actual strategy. But, I have Generation Y coming up now that are successfully becoming rentvestors. So I suppose the aha moment was, whilst I was paying rent as an adult with 2 children, I understood I was helping someone pay off their own mortgage. And this is how I could get into property. So the aha moment came out of desperation and came out of making the right choice of where to park my money when I first started parking money. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And I think with regards to actually people investing or rentvesting right now, it's probably the trend that's going on because unfortunately the properties around, say, Sydney and Melbourne are averaging between $700,000 to $1 million. So it kind of stretches people's budget to be able to afford to buy things and live in. And you basically would be living on a very tight budget if you were to afford to buy one of these properties outright. So, yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. But I suppose that's the lesson. And I suppose we're fortunate enough to live in a time whereby, not that credit's free, but we have credit, we have access to strategies and we have access to different ideas. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as a rentvester and there was no such thing as, do anything other than, get married, buy your own home, pay it off and live on the pension. Well, of course, we know today that that's not going to be sustainable. And however, but we also know that there are many people coming through population, either, being born here or through migration. We know that every single person needs to lay their head somewhere every night. And so to me, property investors are doing our population a service by offering investment properties and having that option whereby you become the landlord, and I'm very adamant about being a very good landlord, you become a landlord to allow people to rent where they want to live and, put them on the path of understanding that they can start investing in outer suburbs because you are right, Melbourne and Sydney, we are going to become populations of 8 and 10 million and we have the land and we're just going to continue to build properties. So investors are actually helping our population have somewhere to lay their head of a night time. And I think it's a very good strategy to get into to understand that, yes, it is about creating wealth. However, you are doing, a person, a family, divorced parents, migrants, a favour by offering them a well-maintained home that they can afford to rent. Meanwhile, you're making money and creating wealth whilst you're doing it.
Williams states she is most excited about being able to access more information about property investing, which is allowing many people who believe that they cannot afford to invest to do so. Access
to information, however, too much information can be not good for you. But I think we have, by educating yourself and understanding the systems, and the systems through the banks, systems through property law, the systems through taxation, I think it was never a secret that property made money, but it was always a secret as to how you could do it. And so I'm just so excited today that we have so much access to information, and we have guidelines and accreditations and qualifications put in place that, you know, if you are going to speak about a subject and you are an authority on the subject, you know, you have to go out and prove that you've actually done it. So I'm excited about the process in my business that I've started. I call it a smarter strategy, a 7-step strategy of becoming a smart investor. And I'm a smart investor and have become a smarter investor by educating myself and learning the systems and having access to that. And if I could say, Tyrone, look, it wasn't easy being a female. Property was generally very much, if I dare say, a boys' club. And I'm really excited about how many women and single women, but women in general, who have really embraced the fact that they can go out and invest in property as well. So that's what I'm excited about. And I'm so excited to see so many young people coming through and understanding that there's benefits in owning property, and then young couples getting into the market, and then, you know, my kids, my own adult children, you know, having investment properties and knowing that they're taking the right steps and right proportions, that's going to work for them. And, you know, understanding it's a risk, but putting risk mitigation strategies in place so that it's going to work for them. So, yeah, I'm very excited about how property can change people's lives today.
Hey, let's be real. Deals that can yield 20 to 30% per annum do exist. Don't believe me? Well, here's a story about property development I invested in Victoria. This developer had the project fully funded beforehand, but he and his family suffered a loss, a circumstance that led him to be unable to proceed with the development. So I stepped in, and in 2 weeks we funded the shortfall, allowing for the development to continue. 5 months later, the development was refinanced and we received our funds back with interest. Yes, there are amazing opportunities in the property market like this one. So, do you want to get a better return with low risk on your money? Then register your interest by visiting propertyinvestory.com. It's human nature to have doubts about our own abilities. For Williams, it was particularly difficult to get past these doubts and to be confident in her understanding of property investing.
Unfortunately for me, it was being a female and worrying about what I could and what I couldn't do, having the belief in myself to trust my gut feeling. So I suppose that was the thing holding me back. And then, of course, from that, money. And, you know, how do I get the money to actually start investing once I knew that this was the path that I wanted to go down?
When locating resources and educating herself on property investing, she has no particular mentors. However, engaging with seminars and focusing on why she wanted to become a property investor was where it all began.
Looking for educational seminars, trying to, look the wood for the tree, what was actually real, what was actually a scare tactic, what was a fear tactic, what was actually thinking about the individual person. So it really was just a journey, no one in particular. But I suppose the reason sort of become my resource was making sure that my kids were going to be well off, making sure that I could provide for my kids. So my why was the thing that made me want to be educated and look for the resources to find out how to invest in property correctly, wisely and safely. Hearing, over decades, you've heard many horror stories and, Gold Coast, for example, what could be done on the Gold Coast, and it went from boom to bust. So I suppose it was more about making sure when I'd made a decision, I was making the right decisions, and I'd always base that on numbers and cash flow.
Sometimes, when there is a lot of information at play, it can be challenging to take it in. The best advice Williams has ever received is to come back and listen again.
Listening to a couple of seminars, it was really funny. You do only hear normally 7% of whatever anyone ever tells you. And so it pays to go back time and time again. And I actually have clients that come and see me speak 2 or 3 times. And they're just amazed at what they pick up every time they come. You've said something different tonight, Christine. I've learnt something different. Well, in actual fact, I haven't really said anything different. It's just that what they were actually able to take in at that particular time. So I suppose the best advice I've ever received was come back and listen to this again. Before you make a decision, make sure that you've heard everything that you need to hear and did it resonate with your gut? And I call that the sleep test. So if a suggestion or a strategy is suggested to you and it sits well with you there and then, but if you don't sleep for the next 3 nights, it's not really sitting well with you. There's something wrong. Your gut's actually telling you that there's something wrong. And as humans, we do have a sixth sense. We just don't know how to use it. So to me, the advice that I heard was, is this right for you? And if you're sleeping well and it sits well with your gut after 3 or 4 days, go ahead and do it.
Love it. That is great. It stops you from taking those really immediate, what's that word for? I'm trying to think of it. Just straight away immediate action, because sometimes you need to actually impulse. That's the word for it. Impulsive actions. And if you take those, sometimes it can actually lead to a lot of distress.
Well, it can. And the whole going to different seminars, where you're asked to sign on the dotted line because tonight's the only night. No. If you're interested, they will know that you're interested and you can take time to think about it. There's none of this sign on the dotted line. I think the cooling off period of 3 days, I think it's well worth it. Yes. And yourself, well, as a female, you impulsively bought that dress and shoes and get it home. And what on earth did I buy that for? So yes, it's really no different, and property is no different to that. It's if you are a compulsive spender and you get it home and you know that you shouldn't have done it, well, there's no difference in property. It's just at a different level, that's all.
William's strategy is central to keeping herself and her clients insured in the event of an unforeseen situation. This came about by ensuring that she never made the same mistake twice.
It came from mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And even though every mistake I made, there ended up being some sort of success out of it. And I call it a success because I learned something. And from those mistakes, it made me become risk. I mitigated risk more and more each time I invested. And I believe at this point, I've mitigated just about every risk or any scenario that could come. I believe that I've put something in place that would not affect the investment property. And so what I did understand was that to keep me moving forward, because of course things went wrong, and of course, weeks when you were worrying about the mortgage being paid and the tenant wasn't there and, what's going to happen. So of course there were those type of weeks and sometimes they turned into months. And it was, well, how could I never let that happen to me again? Because it was always about how could I never let that happen to me again? And it was always about my why for the kids, okay? So when working with my clients, unless they have a solid why, I generally don't want to work with them because it's the why that keeps you on track when something goes wrong. But what I do believe in having the things go wrong along my journey and then finding a way to make sure that they don't go wrong again has what's helped me build my strategy. And I suppose this is a strategy in the smarter strategy or the smarter 7 steps that I'm teaching my client all the time, that, have your why for when things go wrong or when things don't go as good as what you expect, because I'm always telling them that this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's actually slow and steady. Make sure that we have enough cash buffer in place, make sure that we cover the sleep test, make sure that we've got all our insurances in place, make sure that, that all the bank loans are correctly in place. So it's a part of the strategy of making sure that when something goes wrong, it's really going to be a bump. It's not going to turn into a mountain.
On the subject of her strategy, 7 Smarter Steps, Williams has provided a framework through smarter property investing, which everyone can follow to achieve their goals.
Be very specific about why you're getting into it. Measure it. How many properties are you actually looking at, and are these properties going to give you, or the outcome of these properties going to give you what your why is all about? Attainable. Can we get the finance? What do we need to do it? What strategies should we be looking at? Is this realistic? And I get back to, is your why realistic and is your outcome realistic? Because I have people coming to me at, 55 that want 10 properties in the next 5 years. And that's just not realistic. And why do you want them anyway? Or I've got a 25-year-old saying to me, I only want 3 properties. Do you think I can do it? Well, yes, you can, because you've got, 30 or 40 years in the workforce. So is it realistic? And that's what we're looking at. And then time. What is your time frame? Is this 5, 10, 20 years? What is the time frame? And it sort of goes back to the previous 3. And then E is evaluate. So every 12 months you should be looking at what you've done. Is there a better way? Should we be looking at interest rates? Should we be looking at the insurances? How is the property going? Have we gained equity? Can we use equity out of the property? And then my 7th step is R. It's repeat. Do it again. Once you've done it and once you can see that this is working, do it again. And it's not the McDonald's, would you like fries with this? It's actually the McDonald's philosophy of it's a system. Work the system. Don't vary from the system. Once you've chosen your strategy, don't vary from that system, because that system's going to work for you.
For Williams, the importance of having the right team surrounding her is paramount to her investing success. She says it's also become essential for her to have a strong understanding of how your cash flow is going to affect your lifestyle.
So a personal habit is making sure that you have the right advisors around you. And a personal habit is having that team that you can bounce ideas and questions of, i.e. having your accountant, your financial planner, your conveyancer, solicitor, mortgage broker, or bank manager for that matter, and your property advisor. So a personal habit of mine is I've created the team around me that I know that if I'm about to make a decision, I can, springboard it off them to make sure that I've asked all the right questions, I've considered all the, yeses and nos, whys, do's, don'ts. And so that's a personal choice of mine, and I really instill that in my clients as well, making sure that they have the right team around them. But the other most important thing is knowing your numbers and knowing your cash flow and how that's going to affect your current lifestyle. If you don't know your numbers and you don't know what investing in property or how it's going to affect your cash flow and your current lifestyle, that's probably where you need to start. Because if you have to stop going out for coffee, or if you have to stop going on that holiday, or if you've got to stop not being able to impulse buy that pair of heels or that dress, or go and play golf, or go to the footy with your mates, investing in property is not for you, or you've invested in the wrong type of price point, because it shouldn't affect your cash flow. It shouldn't affect your lifestyle to the point that you have to give up the things that you love. It has to be done in tandem. So I suppose that's probably one of my main parts of my strategy and how I've become a successful investor.
The idea of placing all of one's earnings into their investments is ultimately not one that Williams lives by.
Look, it will work for some people, but it won't work for the majority, okay? And the reason why I say that is because we live in a lifestyle whereby going down to the local cafe and sitting and talking and chatting with friends, that might take $20, $30, $50, $100 for that afternoon. And some people will say, well, you should have put that $100 into property because it's for your future. Well, I have taught my kids that they have to have fun along the way. And it might be we don't spend $100, but let's budget 20, 30 or 50 to have fun along the way and invest that other 50. Look, it's all about moderation, and it's about knowing that you don't have to go without to build a property portfolio for your future. Yes, you have to assess your expenses. Yes, you have to assess where the money's going. And when you really assess where the money's going, you will pull back because you know the greater good or your why is to actually invest. But if you have to pull back so much so that you can't even enjoy that cup of coffee or go shopping or have that little holiday or, go to the footy with mates, if you keep on saying, no, I can't afford it, the minute something does go wrong with that investment property, because something will go wrong, and it will be a little bump, you'll get so agitated and so frustrated with your lifestyle that you'll end up selling, which negates everything that you've put in place to work towards your future creation of wealth. So I'm very much of the opinion you can have both. You can eat your cake and eat it too and grow a property portfolio. It's just where you choose to park your money and it's what you choose to go without. And you've got to be comfortable going without that pleasure, that little, lifestyle, and little rewards, okay? And the other thing is too, when you are investing in property, and you do get to a particular goal, and it could be your deposit, or it could be your contract's gone unconditional, or it could be the property settled, or it could be you've got your first tenant. You should reward yourself because that's a major step in your wealth creation journey. And eventually it just becomes the norm because you keep on repeating it, you keep on doing it. But you should keep on rewarding yourself every step of the way. And that could be coffee with friends. It could be, going out for dinner. But do remember to reward yourself because it's all got to do with lifestyle. Because remember, you're doing this for lifestyle.
When considering books she would recommend to listeners, she names several inspiring authors in addition to her own book.
Could start by saying I'm writing my own book at the moment and it's going to be called Suddenly Single. And it's basically going to be having my 7 steps along the way, and hopefully that will be published in the next 12 weeks. So, but from that, it's going to be about lessons I've learned and becoming suddenly single and doing it. But one of the lessons I've learned along the way, and one of the books I've read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And look, it's just a life lesson about enjoying life, knowing what you want, and actually putting away 10%. So it's a very, very simple lesson. It's a very, very simple strategy. And I've got to tell you, I'm a very simple girl. I like the KISS strategy, keep it simple, stupid. So there you go, it can be. So I feel that Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a very simple strategy. And chicken soup, enjoy, be grateful, get up, be grateful that you're here today and be grateful that you've got the opportunity to actually do this. So yes, the chicken soup book as well. So I'm not a great reader. I don't have to delve too deep into it. I just think it's about learning lessons and picking up some really good quotes from, Albert Einstein, just thinking about great people that have been in our life, Mandela, Mother Teresa. All these people have, very much the same lesson as Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Enjoy life along the way and put 10% aside.
If you would like to connect with Williams and find out from her how to make your property investments work right for you, she has a special offer exclusive to Property Investory listeners.
So what happens from where I present, what I call my dining table session or my Destination Freedom session, I present through Bendigo Banks, and I also present individually around Melbourne and sometimes on the Eastern Seaboard. After I present, my audience is offered to book a discovery session. Now, a discovery session goes for 90 minutes, and in that discovery session, we actually work out whether or not investing in property is right for that individual, because sometimes it's not, okay? And that's okay. And in that discovery session, I really uncover your numbers and uncover your why, and that's what it's all about. So the session itself is about the individual. It's not about me. People can Google me and find out what I've done and all that sort of stuff. And I'm happy to share more of my story in that session. But basically, it's about the person and whether or not they can do this. If they can't do it today, what do they need to do in the next 12 months to actually do it in the future? Whether or not they're ready, what their risk tolerances are, and really what their cash flow and what their lifestyle is about and what they want to achieve. Normally, I charge $97 for that. And in that, I always say that if you don't feel that you've received $97 worth of value, I'll refund it. But because Tyrone, giving me this opportunity. I'm happy for people to go to my website, book a discovery session, and if they put in comments, property investing Tyrone, I'll waive that fee regardless, and I'm happy to spend 90 minutes with them. That can either be face-to-face or via Skype. And so you just go to the website, smarterpropertyinvesting.com.au and book a session in, and one of my team members will come back. We'll have a date and time that suits us both. They'll be working individually with me in that discovery session and post-discovery session, and we can see whether or not we're happy working with each other and whether or not investing in property is actually right for them.
Thank you to Christine Williams, our guest on this episode of Property Investory. If you want to hear more about her journey, then visit our website at propertyinvestory.com. Simply type in the search bar Christine Williams and select that episode to learn more about her story. If you love the show, perhaps you're now ready to invest your money in a low-risk, high-return deal. If you are, then SMS me your name and email address on 04 99 88 10 40 to become a lender. There are amazing opportunities in the property market right now, and I'm looking for lenders who want to invest their money for as short as 6 months. What are you waiting for? Don't let your money just sit in the bank. To register your interest, text me your name and email address on 04 99 88 10 40.